Hello, this is Rich, and in this task, you're going to learn how to add physics, actual simulation, a rigid body simulation to your Proximity Mine, and then it's going to throw out into a direction when you left click. So you're going to throw it on the ground, it's going to physically simulate. Here's what we have to do. We need to tell our entity to physicalize. So let's take our Proximity Mine ent that we created, P, Proximity Mine, and we're going to tell it to physicalize. Yes, physicalize. Now, it does take one parameter here. We have the S entity physicalize params, which is the parameters you want to physicalize with. Because you could, for instance, say, hey, I want you to be a rigid body. Or you could say, hey, I want you to be a soft body. Hey, I want you to be rope. So there's different type of parameters that you can pass in. So let's go ahead and do that. S entity physicalization params. We'll just call that phys params. Beautiful. We'll fill in. Now, it's not really important to look at all of these properties, although on your own time, I do recommend you have a look just to play around. It's fun. The physics system in CryEngine is pretty fun to deal with. But just remember that not all of these properties apply to your specific physicalization. So some of these properties only apply to soft bodies. Some of them only apply to ropes. Some of these only apply to cars, vehicles, players, okay? Those type of things. So we're going to deal with the ones that deal with rigid body. Now, we can either specify density or mass. I kind of do better when I think about how much weight something has rather than the density. If you specify one, you have to set the other to 0. Okay, so we're going to take the density and say, we're not going to be dealing with you, but we will be dealing with the mass. Now, mass is weight. CryEngine uses the metric system, so meters, kilograms, all that kind of stuff. I did make a nice little, I deal with pounds in my country, and I made a nice little macro that will convert pounds to kilograms. It's very simple. So we're going to type in pound, so LB to kg, kilograms. We're going to pass in, let's say this mine, I want the mine to be 20 pounds, which will approximately be like 10 kilograms. And we can actually take a look at that at the top here if you want to see what it evaluates to. So basically you pass in the kilograms, and if you're going from kilograms to pounds, you multiply by 2.2046. Or if you're going from pounds to kilograms, you just basically divide by 2.2. That's all. It's really just something simple. Beautiful. So we're going to be approximately 10 kilograms. There's 20 pounds. And we're going to take some more physics params we got here. What slot? Well, let's say we had multiple geometries, which we don't, but if we did, we can specify which geometry we actually want to physicalize. So let's say we had 3 slots with 3 different geometries in the entity. We could say, well, we only want the first slot to be physicalized, and the other ones don't have any physics at all. Well, we do know that our entity does have it only in slot 0, so we're going to say, hey, physicalize just the geometry in slot 0. Next, we need a type. This must be filled, okay? The type is what kind of simulation. Soft body, ropes, rigid body, etc. Well, we need the PE underscore rigid. Now, if you want to see a full list, you can go to PE types enum here, PE type enum, and then you can actually get a list of all of them. So we have basically physicalized areas and articulated, living for like AI movement controllers there. We're not going to physicalize any. Particles, rigid bodies, ropes, soft bodies. Static means it's just going to have like a collision really. And so we want the PE underscore rigid. We're going to simulate a rigid body here. And I believe that would be it. Yep, absolutely. I do advise you look at the other parameters that are specific to other types of physicalization. It is pretty fun. So we'll go ahead and we'll pass in the phys params. And now our entity will be physicalized. But here's the problem. It will be physicalized, so it means when we spawn it, it'll be spawned in this position, and then it will immediately like drop right to the ground. But we actually want to add an impulse. So left click, we throw it like in a direction that we're facing. So you want it to go in the direction that we're facing when throw it. So there we go. We'll just add an impulse. Now, if the physicalization did not succeed, we won't have any physics. So we'll simply do this. P Proximity Mine will call its member function gets physics. And that returns the I physical entity. So we'll do that. I physical entity P phys ent. Okay? Now, if we don't have any physics at all, basically we failed with this physicalized function, we're not going to do any impulses to it, okay? So if the P phys ent does exist, we're going to do what? An action. Remember? Physics action. And we're going to add an impulse. So we're going to create a PE action impulse. And here we go. impulse. Now remember, there's only really two we need. When we want it to apply in the direction strength we want. So we want the apply time to be 0. We want it to apply immediately, okay? And then the direction, so the impulse. So it's the direction plus the length of the vector is interpreted as meters per second. So here's what we need to do. We want to throw it in the direction the player is facing. So we have a really nice function for that. So we'll create a vector3 variable to represent direction, and we'll get the player's direction. So m_p player, remember, the player input class stores the player in the m_p player variable. And we will get the entity, and we'll tell the entity to get its forward direction. Always, and then that returns a vector3, which is the forward direction we're facing. And we're going to make sure that we get the normalized version. Once we do that, we're going to set the length like we did before. So now we have the direction we want to go, but how much power do you want to apply? Okay, how much velocity? So we're going to set the length. And this is only roughly, this is 20 pounds, so we're not going to be needing too much here. We'll say 50 meters per second. Because we do have weight to it, it won't actually be 50, it won't go 50 meters. So we have the direction, and now the impulse is going to equal the direction. Beautiful. And then we're going to take the impulse here and say, hey, the physics of our proximity mine, you're going to be impulsed away from us at a rate of 50 meters per second. And we're going to pass the memory address. Beautiful. Now we've actually, when we left click, we've spawned our entity class, gave it a position about the chest height. We then gave it some physics, rigid body simulation, and then we applied an impulse to it to go away from us, our player's forward direction at a rate of 50 meters per second. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned.